Hi folks, you're with Tacit at your Pushback channel, and thank you for joining this radio live stream. In this essay, I'd like to talk, and I did a video yesterday about this, about rape cases, and this is all across the Western world, and it seems like it's centrally coordinated by the globalists, as it's again a device to divide and spread social division amongst Western society and between the genders and so on. But there's certainly it's not simply that the departments of prosecution are getting a little more zealous to pursue claims, allegations of rape, but it's that they're absolutely gagging to get convictions. Now, in order to get these sort of convictions, in order to set the scene and the stage, then they have to go all ideological, because if they just rely on the facts and the evidence, then they're just not going to get the convictions. So they have to go ideological, and they have to predetermine, well, he's a damn straight white male. That means he's a fascist Nazi. That means he's an oppressor. That means he's a rapist. Okay, guilty as so the guy is guilty before the first piece of evidence appears. The allegation is enough. He's the oppressor class, she is the victim class. He is therefore guilty ideologically. Now, not surprisingly, the whole sort of rape industry, if I can call it that, is shot through with ideological fanatics, men haters, family haters, heterosexual men haters, white men haters, and so on. So now they're all in there for maybe various reasons, like the black prosecutors don't want the idea that black men rape more often than white men, so they're there to get as many white men as possible to show, see, the white guys are just as bad, if not worse. So then you got the lesbians that are in there. See, we told you that that white men are straight white men are oppressors, and so on. So you've got various plus the globalist cheer squads, the various NGOs that just want to sow these seeds of social distrust and break up any social cohesion between the genders. So, the idea that loving partners exist and they love each other and care about each other, that doesn't even appear on the radar. Heterosexual couples, I mean, that doesn't even appear on the radar of these people that are absolutely consumed with the most bitter hatreds imaginable, all of it ideological, of course. It's mythical. So there was a case that I would have actually added to my video yesterday, but I missed it. A case where a man was accused not of rape, but of unwanted sexual touching. Now, this is like a cut down form. If they can't get you on the rape, they'll have a go at that, which still, by the way, can include a prison sentence. Unwanted touching can still include a prison sentence. Hard to believe, though it is. So a woman accused a man of unwanted touching. They were young, they had too much to drink. So again, it became, well, I had too much to drink, I couldn't give consent. And therefore, I'm reduced to the standard of a child, and that makes him double the oppressor. He's white male, and I'd had too much to drink, so he's obviously a fascist Nazi on that basis. Now, the Department of Prosecutions took the case up, which was a he said, she said case, and on the flimsiest of evidence, they took it into an activist court, but the worst thing the guy was guilty of, that he he was touching things like touching her breasts and so on. This was in a private party setting. It was hardly like it was in the middle of the street or in a, I don't know, workplace or something. It was in a party. Everyone was drinking and doing drugs and the like. So I just the mere fact that the Department of Prosecutions took this up shows how gagging desperate they are to get straight white males. I would say if it was a black guy, they wouldn't have bothered. He was white, he was straight, they wanted a scalp, and they weren't going to let this opportunity pass by. So he got a watered down. He got a thing where he was guilty, but he did. I don't think there was any detention time, or maybe a day or two or something. But no, and he had to do. And I think it was a community service order. Is my understanding, at least. Now, here's where justice is only for the wealthy, or the the particularly alert. His family was reasonably well to do, and they weren't happy with this because it still meant he had a conviction for this inappropriate behaviour, which would have affected his chances of employment in certain categories of employment anyway. So the family paid for private investigators, that sort of thing, and what they found was a whole lot of evidence that proved that the government's case was not worth a pinch of shit. Now, what had happened here is the prosecutors and the police, this is my understanding of the situation, had colluded here, and they'd seen that this evidence. They looked at all the evidence in the beginning. They'd seen that a certain body of evidence proved that the man was innocent. Conclusively proved it. Not that maybe there was a bit of wiggle room here. Conclusively proved his innocence, but more importantly, it conclusively proved, as I understand it, conclusively approved rather the perjury, the naked, willful perjury of the accuser. And it's perjury from the beginning because you have to sign a form saying this is the evidence, and that's tendered in a court of law as a statement, an assertion of statement of fact based on one of the parties, the accuser in this case. And when you sign that, you become liable for that evidence, and you can be held accountable for perjury if that evidence proves to be false, as indeed it was in this case. But the police and the prosecution department had a look at this and decided, nah, we're not going to get a conviction. And they'd already committed themselves to the process at this point. They'd already decided to take it to court, and they wanted a scalp, gagging for a scalp. The ideological fucking evil fucks they are, gagging for a scalp of an innocent man. So they decide, well, this evidence, if we put this evidence up, the evidence we've gathered, if we put it up and show it to the court and the other party, then we're going to lose this case. But on top of that, remember they've got this guy's phone. They then delete all these messages from his phone. So not only do they conceal it, they actually try and eradicate the evidence. Can you believe this? Can you fucking believe it? So determined are they to get a conviction of a straight white male. These are the lengths they go to. And there are other cases that are the same as this. Now, the investigators that the family employed, as I understand it, then went to the phone company, because the young man was saying, well, but I had all these messages. And which was mentioned in court, but the judge decided to wave it away. She can make an allegation that's vague and unsupported, with no facts. But if you try and rebut without hard evidence, if you try and rebut it without hard evidence, the bar of evidence you must meet is much higher than the bar she must meet. And why must you meet a higher bar of evidence? Because you're straight white male, you fucking damn fucking Nazi. And she is a victim. Poor little frail flower victim. And so she has a low bar of evidence, and you have a high bar, and you better damn well fucking meet it. Well, you're guilty, dude. So the family hires an investigator who then gets all these SMS messages and so on that were sent via phone between the parties, and that prove that there was no rape, attempted rape, or sexual touching, or whatever the fuck name they want to give to it. And if there was, then it was 100% consensual, and a bit between people over the age of 18. So both of them over the age of 18. So this evidence was then gathered. Now you'd think, just on the strength of that evidence being found, that the Department of Prosecutions, indeed the police department, would ask the court to void the judgment against the young man. Not on your fucking Nelly. So the family has to find the money and the resources to appeal the case based on this evidence. And indeed there was an appeal hearing with quite a prominent lawyer, by the way. And she tore them to shreds, tore them to pieces, obliterated them. The man has won his case on appeal, and all guilt has been expunged, and he walks a free man without anything hanging over his head. But what's happening now to the young woman that committed this perjury? Surely the state would pursue her with the same vigour that it did in pursuing the young man, even though they knew the case against him was flaky, and they knew they'd suppressed evidence, they knew they deleted evidence, and they knew they were perverting the course of justice and were conspiring to pervert the course of justice. Are they going to pursue this young woman for perjury? It seems not. What about the police officers and the prosecutors that willfully concealed the evidence, colluded and conspired to do so, and deleted the evidence? Actually sitting down with the young man's phone and deleting the messages that they knew would exonerate him. Will they go to prison? Because this is a very serious thing. You're perverting the course of justice in this scale. This wasn't an accident. They were willfully doing it, simply so they could convict an innocent man. But it appears not. Now, there are going to be some inquiries, but the way it's going here, there is no, as I can see it, there is no attempt to, there's no headline, there's no screaming headlines across the major media organisations. There's no politicians getting up saying how outraged they are at this willful perversion of the course of justice. There's none of that. Now they're quick enough to get up and declare outrage about the rape and this, and women are oppressed. Quick enough to do that, but then they don't seem interested in this. And you almost get the impression that they're wanting to sweep it under the carpet. Maybe there'll be a few police officers will get a reprimand or something like that. But what we should be seeing here is that all those involved, those who condoned it and those who are engaged in it, should not only lose their jobs, but also face charges themselves. I believe so. So that's now this what they did. The suppressing of evidence, deleting of evidence, the hiding of evidence. All this sort of stuff. This is now the architecture of modern day ideological jurisprudence. Now that architecture can be, if you speak out against mass migration, then you're a white supremacist, which means you're a Nazi, which means you're Hitler, which means you're a terrorist, which means you should go to prison. That same architecture exists. Now, if the evidence doesn't exist, if you look at the January 6th, evidence has been willfully concealed, in my view, willfully concealed in the United States there just so they can put people in prison. Now, why would anybody want to do that? This willful perversion of justice and tampering of evidence. And yet I would assert now that it's widespread in many areas of law, not just divorce courts that it used to be, but rape courts and what increasingly will be political courts. And we're going to see a lot more of those as time goes on, particularly as the globalists get more desperate to push the globalist project, and they're going to lean on the politicians in the West they control. So we'll just get these people, shut them up somehow. Don't care how you do it. Make something up if there's no evidence. And, just invent something, for goodness sakes. And of course, arbitrary application of the law. Why is perjury punishable, severely punishable, if the man denies, when he's denying being a rapist, perjury is considered to be a heinous crime. But if the accuser does it, commits perjury, makes false accusation, okay. Now, we're also looking at another situation where the average citizen who gets accused of rape has to, if they haven't got any money, they've either got to represent themselves, which most people can't, or they've got to take a plea deal because they just can't afford to do it. People who have a wealthy family or themselves have resources, or say a lawyer or something, they could do it. But even the time you have to take off work is expensive. Whereas the accuser has all the resources of the state at her disposal. Everybody involved there is paid by the government, is paid by the taxpayer, the prosecutors, the court apparatchiks, the flunkies, everybody is paid by them. And it's an expensive business to launch a case. You've got a week of hearings and of evidence and going back and forth. You could be looking at $10,000 a day to be running that. That's pretty pricey. Now the guy, if he loses, the state may try and stick the expense on him. You can imagine the plea bargain police and the prosecutors leaning and they go, "Well, Billy Bob, if you want to fight this, that's up to you. We can't stop you. It's your right. But it's going to cost you $50,000 in legal fees for yourself, and then we're going to come after you for the $50,000 it's going to cost us. You'll be bankrupted, you'll be finished, and so on, that sort of stuff. But if you'll cop a plea to such and such, you'll only get 6 months in prison, and then you can start your life again. What do you reckon, Billy Bob? Do you want to sign here? That sort of thing. Now, there'll be a legal aid lawyer for Billy Bob, perhaps, because he can't afford one. And they'll say, well, look, we're not going to represent you, Billy Bob, if you decide to fight the case. So you've either got to sign this form now or we're out of here. We'll cover you up until now, but not if it goes to trial, we won't. So Billy Bob's screwed. What's he going to do? He's really got to take the plea deal. And that's how they get the easy meat. That's how they get the easy convictions. However, if Billy Bob's a little bit smarter, or again, he's a lawyer, or his family's got money, or he's got money, then it's a different story. They become equally matched, and certainly from financial resources point of view. And so Billy Bob can then fight back, and often when they don't think they're going to get an easy scalp, they'll back off. If you look at all the people around the rape courts, there'll be special psychologists, psychiatrists that are rabid men haters, rabid family haters, gender studies, PhDs, and they're going to say, well, I interviewed Billie Jean, and I'm satisfied that Billie Jean was raped 1,000,000 times at gunpoint by Hitler, and then gives that to the judge. Now, the activist judge then doesn't really have to prove that Billy Bob did it. The expert said, the independent expert, the psychologist said that Billie Jean had been raped by Hitler. We've got it. So I have to go with what the independent assessment. So now, what they don't tell you is that when the psychologist rocks into court, that she's a rabid activist, lesbian, men hater, family hater, capitalist Western world hater, and so on. That should be tendered as critical key evidence. So if ever you're involved in any case like this, or know someone who is, you make sure that comes out. You look into the background of anyone, and before you sit down with them, or you're interviewed by them, or talk to them, or exchange any documents with them, you must check that first, and then you must have it in writing. I understand, Ms. Smith, that you're an activist in this area. And by the way, I quote your thesis from your PhD that says all men are Hitler. and you need to do that. These are the links you need to go to. This is part of your fighting back against them. So remember that. Now I'll just touch on one other thing to illustrate that this has been going on for a while. Some of you may have heard of what's called the DUKE, Duke University, the Duke lacrosse case. That's like a hockey game or similar to a hockey game. So the lacrosse team, or members of the lacrosse team, had been, and they I don't think they were very sensible in what they did, but they were having an end of year party or something like that, and they ordered a stripper to come in to strip as part of the end of year party entertainment, whatever. I don't think that was a sensible thing to do, but nonetheless, that's what they did. Now, these stripper things, they tend to go down to brief bikini type costumes. End of story. Maybe that was a bit more. I don't know, but that tends to be how it is. But there'd been the agency that provided the strippers couldn't provide and they ended up sending this drugged out a black girl to do the strip. She either didn't strip or she was in such bad shape, alcohol and drugs, that she couldn't do the job as paid. And so the white men complained. The black stripper and then told them to get lost. Harsh language was exchanged, and each calling the other names and so on. So anyway, the girl, the black woman, the stripper, left, but then complained that she'd been raped and beaten up by the white boys. Now the district attorney actually had camera footage that proved that when the black girl the black stripper left the building where she was supposed to be doing the strip, when she left there, she hadn't been beaten up at all. There was no evidence of assault or battery or anything like that. But when he saw that, he realised that if that evidence got out, then he would not have a case, and it would prove that the white men were innocent or very, very unlikely they were guilty. So so he hid that evidence and hid some more. Also, he hid some DNA evidence as well. So the prosecutor is colluding with the police. The district attorney, in this case, rather, is colluding with the police and other functionaries around the system. People interviewing the girl and that sort of thing. So colludes with all of them to conceal the evidence and to suborn or support and assist this black woman in committing the most outrageous perjury. So so the district attorney goes ahead and files charges on prosecute of rape and assault and battery against these young white men. They were college kids, so they're all be like 20 years old or something, and pursued that with vigor. And again, withheld that evidence, this critical evidence that proved that these young men were innocent and proved that their accuser was committing perjury. And yet he concealed the evidence. He was so desperate, he was gagging for that conviction. And what better than 3 or 4 straight white male scalps from an upmarket university, in contest with a black working class stripper girl. It had everything. It ticked every box. Race, and gender, and sexuality. It was the lot rolled into one. And so he went ahead and did this. Now, turns out the kids, or one of them in particular, that the folks were wealthy and they weren't going to take this lying down. They employed some hotshot private investigators to go and do some checking, and they dug up a lot of things. And in the event, it was shown that the district attorney was so desperate to get a conviction of the white boys that he'd again colluded and conspired to pervert the course of justice, including concealing critical evidence. Now he was fired, and I think he spent like one day or even one night maybe in jail, and he's disbarred from practicing law in that state. but he's been well looked after. He's suddenly taken up his wife has been given this very well paid job, and so he's living, well, what personally claiming bankruptcy, so they can't come after him. He's personally living a very good quality life in a nice house with a nice car. He's not going without anything. And I found that the people that support the globalist agenda, but by, in this case, perverting the course of justice, planting evidence, concealing evidence, manufacturing evidence, deleting evidence, call it what you like, they are very well looked after by the globalists. You look at someone like, say, Peter Strzok in the FBI that deliberately went out to nobble the Trump administration, and General Mike Flynn, what I would describe, in my view at least, as willful, premeditated entrapment. And he gets kicked out of the FBI and then gets a job straight away as a CNN, contributor. I mean, he's being well looked after. He's not going without. And yet, and until these people who do these sort of things realise they will have to suffer some serious penalties, including jail time, including never being able to work in the field of expertise again, and so on and so. Until they suffer those penalties and know that they're likely, in all likelihood, will suffer these penalties, then they'll continue doing it, and the whole apparatus and the whole structure of law that has been turned over to ideology will continue to behave in this way. You've been with Tacitus today, your Pushback channel, and thank you for listening.